Hello there, welcome back to my channel. This is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, survivor, and advocate. And today's topic is of a sensitive nature. And I will be discussing today when your narcissistic parent dies and expect the unexpected. And so I have learned quite a lot about narcissistic abuse over the past 2.5 years, and I have gained such valuable insight and life lessons that have radically changed the way I feel about the family, about loyalty, and about the healing journey. And so I don't know if you have a narcissistic parent who might be elderly, maybe they're a senior citizen, maybe they are not doing well, maybe they have medical conditions, or they are perhaps on their deathbed at this very moment. Understand that there is a whole other dynamic involved with death, loss, and grief when it comes to narcissism, especially when it was our narcissistic parents, grandparents, or even it could be your sibling or some other relative. A lot of us will be dealing with at some point in our life at least one or more parents who pass away before us. And if we do have any kind of dysfunctional families, any kind of toxic dynamics within the family unit, especially if anyone has dealt with one or more narcissistic parents, we can understand that when it comes to death and dying, and then the eventual parent who is a narcissist who passes away, it is extremely complicated. This is a very complex topic and one that I do not take lightly. So please understand this is coming from a place of authenticity, of integrity, and of truth seeking to be there to support those who are currently dealing with a narcissistic parent or someone else in their life who is extremely abusive. And please understand that I support you in your healing journey. And so I will share a lot of what I have experienced and what I have learned. And most of you already know bits and pieces of my story of my narcissistic mother, different situations involving death and loss and the toxic siblings. But for those who are new to my channel, I will be sharing little stories here and there of what I've gone through to give you encouragement, to help you expect the unexpected, and to understand that anything can happen when and if your narcissistic parent or relatives pass away. Okay, so we're going to go with that prior to the narcissistic parent passing away, we may anticipate what might happen. And so I'll just give an example. Prior to my narcissistic mother passing away on July 8th, 2020, I had anticipated that I would not know anything about it. And the reason why is because when my father passed away 14 months prior to my mother. Now, keep in mind, my father was not a narcissist. Just want to kind of put that out there. But my toxic siblings were playing mind games and having intentional, malicious, toxic, abusive behaviors, words, and actions because they did not want me to be informed that my father was on his deathbed, that my father was dying, and anything involving his memorial. They did everything that they could humanly do to prevent me to know anything and to keep all the details and information of his dying, of his death, of the memorial, and so forth. They purposefully, viciously, spitefully kept this information from me. Here's a picture of my father and I, and this is one. I'm so thankful for my friend Beth Jones, 2 thumbs up for Beth, who sent me this picture of my father and I in a frame shortly after my father passed away, and Beth was very understanding. She understood the dynamics that were going on within my family and how horrendous this timeline was for me when my siblings were purposefully hurting me and keeping information from me. Now, I anticipated that because they kept information about my father from me, it only made to me logical sense that they would never tell me if my narcissistic mother would be dying. They would not inform me if she was on her deathbed. And of course, they would definitely keep any memorial or funeral arrangements from my knowledge, because this was another way for them to hurt me. You know, we have to understand that there is a narcissist, and a narcissist has the flying monkeys that do all the dirty work. And so even when the narcissist may pass away, those flying monkeys continue to do the dirty work, and they take great pleasure in hurting you. So prepare for that, but understand that what you might think will transpire after the narcissist passes away, understand that it might not play out how you had anticipated it to. You could have a lot of surprises that may come your way, and I'm going to share some of the surprises that happened along my journey and along my whole healing path, and the things that happened that I may not have expected. Some of the things that I expected did happen. Many of the things I did not anticipate also happened. And so there's a lot to learn, and hopefully today you will understand a little bit more about the narcissistic parent and after they pass away, and that there's a lot of crazy making that takes place, especially between the time they're on their deathbed and then the timeline of the actual funeral and or memorial, okay? Because nowadays, even especially during COVID 2020, there's a lot of people who may not even be able to have a funeral due to the pandemic in 2020. So that really played a huge role in my mother's passing in July 2020. Okay, so here is just a little bit of information to kind of catch you up to speed and to give you educational, extremely important information that may help you prepare for when your narcissistic parent or grandparent passes away. So number one, you will not be informed by your relatives, maybe even family, friends, siblings, other parents. There's a lot of people who actually were brought on board by the narcissist, who became the flying monkeys, who then defended and protected the narcissist. And so even when the narcissist is on their deathbed and then they pass away, you could bank on it, the flying monkeys will definitely do everything they can within their power to hurt you and to prevent you to know any updated information. Understand that A, you may find out at the last minute. B, you may never ever be told by any relatives that your narcissistic parent passed away. You may find out days later, weeks later, months later, years later. I mean, hey, we got to keep this timeline open because anything can happen after the narcissistic parent passes away. Next is that important information that is something that really should be disclosed to you because you are the adult child of the narcissistic parent. We have to understand that even though we can believe that it's really important information and it's pertinent that people let you know up-to-date status on what is happening with this dying parent and if they passed away, understand that there will be a lot of people who will go to great lengths to keep it on the lowdown, to not keep you in the loop. They will not communicate anything specific to you, and they may even purposefully and intentionally seek to keep everything from you because they don't want you to know. Next is we have to understand that their intent is to hurt you. Their intention and their motive is very malicious. It's very sinister. It's evil. And P.S. They could call themselves Christians all they want, but their actions prove otherwise. Number 3 is it's a major shit show when your narcissistic parent passes away. Oh, it's a 3-ring circus, and the toxic siblings really take pleasure in doing all kind of crazy things to you, and anything that they could do to find ways to continue the abuse cycle. So it's a cycle that goes around and around and around, and they enjoy hurting you. They enjoy making you suffer, making you feel bad that you're not invited to, maybe you're not invited to the hospital. Maybe you're not invited to the funeral. Maybe your parents on the deathbed and you don't even know about it because they purposefully withheld this information from you. Next is that, when a narcissistic parent is on their deathbed and they're dying, it's an extremely stressful time. Losing a narcissistic parent can be quite messy, but growing up with an abusive, neglectful, hostile, bitter, hateful, egotistical, malignant narcissist is 10 times worse. 10 times worse. So know that it takes great courage and great strength to overcome the battles that you will be going through upon the timeline of the narcissistic parent being on their deathbed, then passing away, and then there's the whole shit show with the funeral that is I am talking, this is when it gets to a skyrocketing degree of absolute lethal, poisonous, malicious actions, words, and behaviors on the part of very spiteful, hateful relatives, including your toxic siblings. Next is that when there could be a possibility of you even getting some hint that your narcissistic parent might be dying, this could be very uncomfortable. This could be unpleasant. This could cause you some great stress. It may be a situation where you're caught with a decision, a very painful, difficult decision. Do you go visit the narcissist, say at the hospital? Do you say goodbye? Do you not go? When it comes to the funeral, when it comes to the memorial, whatever way they have this funeral type arrangements and so forth, and every family might have something different in their traditions and how they grieve, the loss of a parent. We have to understand that it is a very, very painful, traumatic experience, and yet there is a lot of healing that could come afterwards. There's a lot of healing that does occur when we are now free from the narcissist. Next is we have to understand blame games are a big part of the whole dynamics of when a narcissistic parent might be on their deathbed or they may have already passed away. So what happens is these relatives, now it could be the grandparents, it could be the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the siblings, it could be possibly even one of your other parents who are still living. The situation may be different for each of us, but typically there are blame games that happen, and the flying monkeys create drama, and more drama. And so they'll victim blame you and shame you. So what happens is if you are the scapegoat of your family, if you are the black sheep of your family, whichever way it may go, you will be blamed. You will be shamed. You will be ostracized. Okay, and you will be cast out of the family gatherings, the family celebrations, the family who is arranging all of the final responsibilities of taking care of the deceased parent who has passed away and all the funeral arrangements. And there's a good chance you will not be involved. You will not get to say what you think. You will not be able to give your opinion, your feedback. And they don't care because they don't want your feedback. They don't want you involved. And they want to make sure that you have absolutely no say-so in anything to do with your narcissistic parent, whether you did go no contact or you didn't go no contact. At this point, it really doesn't matter because the flying monkeys are out to hurt you, and they love every single minute of it. Next is, you are damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So this is a situation, and we're going to keep it open to the two different things that are going on. A, the dying narcissistic parent, and then B, the deceased narcissistic parent. So in both scenarios, we have a deathbed situation, and then we have the deceased. Now the narcissist parent died. So there's two totally different situations, but they go back to back. But in these situations, and here's the example. For example, my mother, when she was on her deathbed, I didn't know and was completely unaware. So prior to the very beginning of July 2020, I had not heard anything about my mother. I had already been no contact with my mother for over 1 year. I had not seen my mother for over 2 years, and I was not in contact for 2 years with my toxic siblings and their children and husbands. And so the situation played out where it was July 2020, the very beginning, and I'm completely unaware of anything happening with my siblings and with my mother. And so out of nowhere, in the first week of July, I received a phone call from my son who said he received a text message from my nephew in which my nephew said, my mother was on her deathbed. And at this point, there's a lot happening. Number one, we are in lockdown. There is major COVID going on. My mother was in hospice, from my understanding. I don't know the timeline of anything. Again, I don't know anything. Because why? Because the malicious, evil, twisted sisters kept it from me. However, when I get the message from my son about my nephew telling him that my mom's in hospice and she's on her deathbed, her liver is it was her kidneys, it was not her liver. I'll clarify, it was her kidneys that were shutting down. And when I did the research, kidneys are the first organ to shut down before a person passes away. And this was something very complicated. Do you go see your mother even though you're in no contact? Do you not go see your mother? Whether it's your narcissistic father, your narcissistic mother, whether it is someone else, for you it might be an ex-partner, it might be an ex-friend, it might be your grandparents, it could be even a sibling. So for everyone, the narcissist might be someone different, but in this video, we're really zooming in on the narcissistic parent. But the situation is that if you don't know about someone dying, you can't do anything. Come on, you can't do anything. And number two, that if you do get word of the narcissistic parent who's on their deathbed, then you have to make a choice. Do you want to go visit the narcissistic parent on their deathbed? Do you want to really maintain your boundaries and not do so because you believe it will cause you a significant setback? And so these were like big things that I even did consider upon finding out at the very, very last minute that my mother was on her deathbed. So my big situation, like one obstacle for me, was that I'm in the midst of COVID. Hospice does not permit you to just walk in the door and go visit that parent. No. So my situation was I would have had to, get a blood test to make sure that I don't have COVID-19. I would have had to get approval from the head nurse supervisor of that hospice to get the okay and approval to even be permitted to go see my mother. And then there are so many other dynamics that are involved. The timeline was of the essence. And given that very, very brief timeline, 2 days. So I had 2-day notice that my mother was dying. 2 days is not enough time to, number one, get all the blood work done or get the nasal swab. So some people do it's a very uncomfortable nasal swab for COVID to be told either positive or negative. And then if it's negative, maybe, just maybe, you could visit someone in the hospital or hospice or whatever. But in my situation, the timeline was too short. There was not enough time to get any of this done. And then there was the whole aspect on, well, I am already no contact. What can actually be gained from seeing the narcissist? That's another thing to really question yourself with. And most important, really the most important thing here for you is, if this will cause you a horrible setback, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And ultimately, I believe that it would have caused me a setback, and I needed to really salvage my own sanity, my own peace of mind, and stand firm in my boundaries. Okay, let's move on to number 6 is drama, and more drama. Okay, so the toxic relatives and the siblings will create drama. Now, the ironic thing, super ironic, is that when my nephew was kind of going back and forth with my son on a text message back in July 2020, when he informed my son, hey, grandma's passing away and you might want to let your mother know. And then my son, he obviously let me know, and he knew how important this was for me to know. And so the situation is that he made a comment to my son, oh, I could find a way for your mom to go visit grandma in the hospice. Oh yeah, I can pull some strings. Oh my. I give him credit, maybe he has a big heart. Maybe in his mind he thought he could pull strings, but no, you can't pull strings during COVID. And with only a 2-day notice, there's no way you're going to get back in time the results of your test or even be approved on time to go to hospice to see my dying mother. So, but the real ironic thing was that he pulled a fast one and was like, yeah, well, your mom better not create drama if I let her go see grandma. And so I think that was almost comical, but very, very typical. I think he got that from his mother, who happens to be my toxic sister. And I think it's funny how the flying monkeys and all their little people who they recruit to be on their side and to attack us and bully us, us scapegoats, they try to act like we are creating drama. In the meanwhile, they're the ones who are stirring up trouble. They're instigating. They're stirring the pot and they are enjoying it. And they love to say that it's us, oh, it's you. Oh, you're so sensitive. Oh, it's you. You're the problem. You're the crazy one. This is the crap they tell us. And we have to understand that this is how they behave. And this is how they gaslight us. Next, we can understand that when it comes to obituaries, now this really needs to be brought up because I did extensive searching When my dad died, I did extensive searching for his obituary back in May 2019 and couldn't find any obituary. So what happened was my toxic siblings purposefully did not put an obituary in the local newspaper where my father had lived because they didn't want me to know any details about his funeral arrangements. You figure most obituaries will have something in regards to whether it's a funeral or whether it's a memorial. It will have the times and the dates of this arrangement, whatever it may be, whether it is a funeral, whether it is a memorial. But because my toxic siblings did not want me to have this information, they didn't have an obituary for my father for over 1 month. I finally did find it, but it was after the fact. It was a month later, for crying out loud. Next is when my mother passed away, I started searching online for an obituary and was anticipating that there would not be one for quite a long time in a very similar situation to my father. And so I started searching local newspapers. And I mean, we're talking looking in all these different newspapers, all these online things to do with the deceased and the dying and what have you. Couldn't find anything for the longest time. Maybe it was a few weeks later, I tripped upon in a very unexpected location online. So it was, again, expect the unexpected. So in a place I never would have expected to see this obituary, it kind of just popped up out of nowhere. And remember, I Googled a lot of information. You know, you're Googling my mother's maiden name, my mother's married name, even though she's not married anymore. There was so much I was Googling and nothing showed for the longest time. But when I finally did trip upon something that was unexpected, it was very, very clear when I looked at the date that it was published and when I looked at the information that was published, it was crystal clear that my twisted sisters, again, intentionally meant for me not to know when they were having this memorial for my mother, and they wanted to make sure that I didn't show up. And then we can only imagine the things that they're saying to relatives who might be questioning, where's Dana? Why isn't Dana here? Oh, I bet they loved every minute of it, made up all kind of lies and stories about why I wasn't there. In the meanwhile, those bitches kept the information from me. So all I could say to my toxic siblings and their flying monkeys, because trust me, they recruited flying monkeys too, is you will reap what you have sowed. Everything will come around. Karma will bite you. And I take comfort in knowing that God still sits on the throne and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Next, zero inheritance is the next thing we need to talk about. So if you are in the midst of a dying narcissist, or they may have just very recently passed away, understand that typically the people who are the flying monkeys, the toxic siblings, whoever was supporting and protecting and defending the narcissist, they will go to great lengths to prevent you to receive any form of inheritance of anything that could be monetary gain. Expect the unexpected. Number one, expect that your name is not on the will. Expect that your name is not on the list to receive anything. Expect that they will do whatever they can, even doing illegal practices, especially abusing their power if they happen to be a professional who works in the legal system. And so, for an example, my stepsister is an attorney. Okay, and so I have no doubt that there were some things that had occurred that may not have been on the up and up. And all I can say, you will reap what you will sow. God sees everything. God knows everything. They think they're hurting me. They are really hurting themselves. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt me. See, they think, oh, we're going to hurt you so bad so you don't get any money. It doesn't hurt me. I don't want anything that belonged to my mother. That is because of a spiritual negativity that is attached to anything that belongs to my mother. I want nothing of my mother's. I have literally deleted every single picture of my mother and my sisters on my cell phone. I am slowly getting rid of everything that belonged to them. Do you understand? There is a correlation of their negative, oppressed, wicked, demonic energy attached to items. It could be jewelry, it could be clothes, it could be pictures, it could be certain things that they gave you or that belonged to them and somehow you got it. You received it at some time. I don't want anything that is attached to evil, negative energy. No thanks. Next is we can understand that the toxic siblings and anyone else who is good friends with a narcissist will make sure that they will do something sly, very covert tactics, very manipulative. They'll be gaslighting you. They'll be really trying to hurt you in every imaginable way possible. And again, expect the unexpected because anything can happen after the narcissistic parent passes away. Number 9, oh boy, this one is important to talk about, and you need to think about this because if the narcissistic parent or whoever the narcissist is in your life or who you went no contact with, you will have to make very important decisions on whether to attend or not attend the funeral and or memorial. And the one thing we need to talk about are at a memorial and or funeral, what happens is a lot of times during the service, there will be people who will get up and they will be, they'll receive a microphone or what have you, and they'll be talking, and there might be people who will be singing praises about the narcissist. Oh my goodness. Think about this. Are you able to sit there during a funeral or memorial service and hear all of the exaggerated claims of how beautiful the narcissist was, how wonderful, oh, they were such a devoted mother, oh, they were such a good mother, oh, they were such a devout Christian, oh, they were such a good person, oh, they had such a big heart. Are you able to sit there without vomiting? I know I couldn't sit there because it made me nauseous just thinking about it. And so I was actually thankful that I did not know about either parent's funeral and memorial arrangements because, for one, I couldn't stomach, number one, being in the presence of my toxic siblings. Number two, I would never put myself in that position to be again and again and again psychologically abused, ostracized, outcast, treated horrendously, publicly humiliated. There's no way that I would ever submit to such toxicity. But some of you may feel pressured. You may feel obligated that you have to be at your narcissistic parent's funeral or memorial. But are you able to sit there and bite your tongue when they praise the narcissist and say what a great man he was or what a great woman she was? I know I couldn't stomach hearing about my mother. I couldn't sit there and be quiet. And so I chose to take the higher road. And in reality, I didn't know. I was not informed about her memorial. So I'm absolutely thankful that this is how it transpired and that it is what it is. And I did what was best for me. And I'm absolutely thankful that I did not know when her memorial was scheduled. This actually was a blessing in disguise. Next is grief and loss. Whenever there is a narcissistic parent who passes away, we have to understand that we're not only dealing with loss and grief, but we're also dealing with the painful, broken relationship that we have suffered for decades and decades and decades. So grief is universal. Everyone experiences grief and loss, including with our parents. But when there is the narcissistic dynamics, and when there is anything to do with if your parent was mentally abusive, psychologically abusive, physically abusive, sexually abusive, etc., it is double hard to go through the grief and the loss, because you're not just dealing with the death of the narcissist, you're dealing with the turmoil of the abuse. And so I support you, I'm here for you, and I understand the pain. We have to understand, you grieve the mother or the father who you never had. You grieve the unconditional love that they never gave to you. You grieve the family betrayal. You grieve for your inner child who was brainwashed, neglected, abused, and told that you don't matter. Maybe you were brainwashed and told you're stupid. Maybe you were told you're unworthy, that you're not valuable, that you're just not enough. Maybe you were just constantly being told nasty things that were meant to hurt you. And so now you're picking up the scattered pieces, the tears are flowing, and you are trying to cope with the loss of your narcissistic parent. Let the tears flow. It's okay to cry. I've always believed that the tears are part of the healing, of the releasing the past traumatic events. Understand that self-care is crucial. It's really important that you take care of you. I consider this a time of self-preservation. You need to really protect your energy, yourself. You need to consider ways that you could nurture yourself and protect yourself and love yourself. Next is, there is no set way to grieve the loss of a narcissistic parent. Everybody grieves differently. We have to understand there's a cascade of human emotions. You may feel it just overflowing, like bubbling up to the surface, and you may have so many different emotions. You may feel shock, you may feel denial, anger, you may feel relief, you may feel unexpected peace. And so I just want to stop for a minute, because on the day that my mother passed away, now we'll start with, I did not know yet. So I wake up in the morning, I am not informed, and I do not even know that my mother passed away on July 8th, 2020. So I wake up in the morning and I noticed that I felt lighter. I felt like a big weight was taken off of me. I felt happier. I felt freer. I felt joy. I just felt like totally immersed in peace. I could feel this major shift in the energy around me. And so on that morning, I was completely unaware that my mother passed away, but within a few hours, I received the phone call from my son that my mother passed away, and I felt relieved. My biggest feeling and emotion was, number one, relief, and number two, freedom, and number three, peace. So understand that anything you feel is normal. It's extremely normal to feel relieved that the narcissist can't hurt you anymore, relieved that it's behind you, relieved that you finally get your life back, relieved that, oh my goodness, you could finally start a new pathway to healing. Next is that it's a waste of time to confront the toxic people who kept this information from you, or maybe they left you out of the inheritance, or maybe they hurt you in any way possible, whether you were or were not invited to the hospital or the hospice to see your dying narcissistic parent, or whether you were not kept within the loop. Nobody communicated to you about any funeral arrangements. It is not productive to confront the toxic people, because they lie, and continue to cause great harm. And so I consider it a waste of your energy very unproductive, and it's not in your best interest to be bothered with that. Next is give yourself safe space to be in the moment. Do not feel guilty if you didn't go to the hospital, if you didn't attend the funeral. Do not feel bad for salvaging your own sanity, for protecting yourself, and for standing firm in your boundaries. Next, focus on positive energy, on doing whatever feels natural for you. If for you it's natural to cry and release the pent-up emotions, then let the tears flow. If for you, you want to cry, you want to write, you want to vent, you need someone to talk to, find someone trustworthy, caring, and trauma-informed, and someone who understands narcissistic abuse, someone who you can confide in. It might be a therapist, but seek support in your grieving process. And know that it's important for you to walk away from all unhealthy relationships, that going full no contact is going to give you the key to take back your power. And last, we can understand that even on YouTube, there are a lot of videos and a lot of people who understand narcissistic abuse, and we are here today to support you and to let you know that you are not alone. And please share with me, is your narcissistic parent on their deathbed? Are they elderly? Are they dying? Do they have poor health? Has the narcissistic parent passed away? If so, how did you deal with it? How did you cope with this? What were the emotions that you felt? Did the flying monkeys rear their ugly heads and gaslight you, create smear campaigns against you, and retaliate and not invite you to the funeral? Did you discover that you are not part of the narcissistic parent's will or inheritance? There's so many different things that happen, and again, with everyone it could be different, but share with me what you have experienced, and I would love to hear your story, and understand that grief is a part of this healing journey, and that I am here today. I hear you, I validate you, I care about you, and I will continue to share healing, health, and hope, and healthy boundaries. So today I support you and I'm there for you. God bless.